Time now for our international press review in the papers with Chris Moore. Chris, Radovan Karadzic, I imagine, making waves in the media.
Absolutely. He's in The Hague, but with news of his transfer breaking overnight, the papers are focusing on protests and his support in Belgrade last night. Not least the Serbian papers. Let's start off in Bilic. You can see supporters of Karadzic holding up a picture of him in his former incarnation, if you like, there. Politica, they focus on the violence that accompanied some of these protests. Police there using tear gas to disperse stone-throwing protesters. Now, The Guardian, the British paper, puts all of this into perspective, really. The US had feared some 100,000 people turning out on these protests. In the end, it was closer to 15,000. This lukewarm response, according to The Guardian's European editor, Ian Trainer, suggests that hardliners that have dominated Serbia for the past 20 years are very much on the retreat. However, he does caution on Tadic's future, saying that Tadic is still governing in coalition with nationalists. He has to pay attention to them. His grip on power is not that strong. And he recalls the fate of Zoran Djindjic, Tadic's predecessor in 2003, assassinated just after the arrest of Slobodan Milosevic.
Is that slide in nationalism, as The Guardian's tweet, is that reflected in the Serbian press?
In the Serbian press, they're very much, I think they're trying to play it up, really. I mean, the photos showing how violent some of these protests became, but at the same time, even the Serbian press acknowledging that the turnout was not what we expected.
The figures, obviously, they said 500,000, 15,000 turned up. Still a sizable crowd, but not as big as they had boasted it would be.
Absolutely, a vocal crowd.
OK. What's next?
Terrorism, Mark. Al-Qaeda, a story we've heard more and more about over the last year or so. Al-Qaeda supposedly on the retreat in Afghanistan and Iraq, but on the up in the Maghreb, the North African countries. This is kind of a cautionary piece from Amir Taheri, an Al-Qaeda expert focusing on Algeria and Morocco, and saying that in Algeria, Al-Qaeda is very much on the up. Of course, the creation of Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb in 2006. 4 recent suicide bombings, the first in Algeria. There were no suicide bombings in Algeria before 2006. This shows that they're adopting Al-Qaeda's international tactics, if you like. And he says that the country in the grips of social and political problems is going to be very much facing a new front in the war on terror. No less worrying, though more subtle, are changes which are taking place in Morocco, he says. He looks at the urban fabric of Morocco and how it's changed over the past 4 or 5 years, and says that walk around any large Moroccan city and you'll see more beards and fewer miniskirts and jeans. And he really talks about the kind of phenomenon of acceptable middle-class Islamism, saying that Islamists are using charities to provide services that the government doesn't, like bank loans and healthcare, but also, of course, to raise funds. And he says that the front for political Islamism in Morocco is the Justice and Development Party, modelled on Turkey's AKP. Many of its sort of young rising stars have been over to Turkey to train, and he criticises the AKP and the Moroccans for allowing these people to go on internships in Washington, and criticised the Americans for accepting them.
Interesting link there, interesting link. OK, Belgium next.
Belgium, yes, the ongoing dispute between French and Flemish speakers. Now, we've heard a lot about 1 in 2 Flemish speakers wanting independence from Belgium. Le Figaro, the French paper, has a very interesting survey saying that 1 in 2 French speakers, particularly younger people, now want to be a part of France. 4 million French speakers, says Le Figaro, have had enough of the 6 million Flemish speakers, and they're saying, well, if you want to be independent, well, get lost, we'll go and be French. This is not true, says Le Figaro, of the Belgian political classes. The French-speaking political classes in Belgium, but they look at some French politicians' reactions. Philippe de Villiers, the right-wing French politician, obviously he's quite up for integrating some 4 million more French speakers, which would increase the population of France to above that of Germany. The socialists, they're quite interested in having young, dynamic people. One UMP member says, we're happy to accept these people. The only problem is that most of them are very left-wing and they won't vote for us.
OK, Chris, thank you very much. That international press review there with Chris Moore. You're with Hans van Kat. Stay with us.
Business is brought to you by Dexia, the public finance bank.